you came into the UFC. You were on fire for a while there. You got your title shot against Evan Tanner, who had won the title against. It was a vacant title. Beat David Terrell.
Yeah.
He got the title, and then you came in and you took it right away from him. Mm-hmm. When you won that title, what did that mean to you, or was it almost like, hell, what am I doing here? Because you did beat Ken Shamrock. Let's make that clear. You did win that, even though no one remembers that fight. I hate to say it.
I know it got erased by
Bonner
and Griffin Forrest. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but you did beat Ken Shamrock. But then you took that title, and you had an amazing career. You really did. Was winning the championship the highlight?
No, not at all. Actually,
that's what I want to know.
Okay, so the highlight of my career is way more personal than winning a championship. I mean, having that belt wrapped around your waist is it's a very cool feeling, and knowing that the hard work that you've done paid off to the point where you reach the pinnacle of something, to be considered the best in the world at what it is that you do. Like, very few people can claim that in the world. That's even right. If it's for a short period of time. It's like people can say, oh, I'm really good at this, or I'm ranked in the top or whatever, but very few people can say I am the absolute best at what it is I do. But that's pale in comparison, because, going back to the discussion we had before about the status of MMA and the 2002 era, and we did it for the love of the sport and the thought of actually making a living doing this. When I think back now at this age of myself, who decided to quit a job teaching. Now, keep in mind that I was my father's only son to graduate from college. And my dad, who barely graduated high school, went back to university himself to become a nurse. And so he and I actually graduated from the University of Cincinnati basically the same year.
Oh, and so that's awesome.
He highly valued education. And then so when I basically, after 4 years of teaching, or at the 5 years, including what I did in my schooling, said, hey, Dad, listen, I'm going to pursue MMA as a career. Like, he saw me just throwing away my education. He's like, you're going to just throw away your education like that? And I swear, I think my dad wanted to. Yeah, but he wanted to punch me that day. Like, in his mind, it was like I was throwing everything away. And so, the thought of like how naive I was, which is a beautiful thing, because you have to take these leaps of faith in life if you're going to accomplish something great, And it's like, I had faith in myself. I had faith in God. I had faith that things were going to work out in some way, shape, or form or another. And so I decided to do this. And looking back now, the older version of myself, you get a little bit more conservative. It's like, man, that actually was a crazy decision. But the highlight of my career is when I fast forward, my dad came to Vegas to watch me defend my title. And we sat down. I remember I was eating ice chips because I was cutting weight, and he was eating, and it was me and him and his girlfriend, and we had dinner. And I just remember my dad looked at me and he said, hey man, he goes, you know what? I'm really proud of you for the decisions that you made in life to pursue your dreams, even when I was doubtful that you might actually accomplish something great here. He's like, what you've done is more than amazing. And my father's pride in me, like, way outweighs any belt, any victory, any retribution of a loss, like any of that kind of stuff in my career. Like, that moment sticks out to me more than anything. But if I'm talking about fights, I could go down a different rabbit hole. And probably my favorite fight in my career, the biggest highlight moment, was my Luter fight. And because
really, Travis Luter.
Yep. Yeah. Cause it's my worst winning performance. And John, you refereed my Nate Corey fight. So, I was in control of that match from start to finish.
Yep.
And I got a highlight reel knockout, and not that, Nate was game, man. I mean, he was a tough fighter too. And it's easy to look at fights like that and be like, oh, that was great. Or you can talk about like breaking my arm in the Chuck fight or breaking my hand in the Loazo fight. But the Luter fight was like a quicksand fight. It was one of those fights where I was training with Hume for this. He prepped me for the fight. We laid out a game plan. He had the game plan nailed to a T. We did all the drills we needed to do, and Luter executed exactly the way that he predicted. Exactly. And in the fight, it's like the first puzzle came my way and I failed. And then he did the next thing and I failed. And I failed like 5 times on all the drills that we were doing. It's like I had the solutions, but I wasn't executing. And it got to the point where Luter had mounted me. And I mean, even in camp, Matt, he looked at me and he said, look, if he mounts you, the fight's over. Like, don't get mounted. And so I had this moment where I mentally broke in that match. And just for this moment, like, I was like, oh my God, I've lost this fight. And then I was like, no, wait a minute. Absolutely not. And then I fed him the arm and did that hitchhiker escape and came out. And then, of course, after that, like even on my feet, when like he mentally broke at that point. But once I got back to my feet, then I was just headhunting because that was the biggest knockout bonus that the UFC had announced at the time. So I was I was just doing everything I could to try to get that knockout bonus. And I just looked horrible start to finish in that fight. But it was a winning fight, and it taught me a lot about what I was personally made of. And so, when I look back at my career, I look at like these different aspects that other people they won't see, they don't know because they haven't walked a mile in my shoes, kind of thing.
No, I have a very similar breakdown to that whole thing. I mean, like my family, same way. They just were like, hey. Like they constantly were telling me, like, what are you doing with your life? You have an education. Like, what are you doing? What are you doing? Like, this is stupid. Like, you're wasting time. You should be a plumber. You should be an electrician. You should join the union. Great benefits, great pensions, all these things. And I was like, no, I just want to keep trying this. I'm literally just sleeping on Bob Cook's couch, for a while until the two of us got a place together. There's that. And then, like you said, stages of your career, fights that stood out to you. For me, it was the Hermes Franca fight. I got dropped in that fight in the third round, came back, was able to win the third round, kind of won the first two. It's like, those are the moments. Sure, the belt is great, but it sits like, if we didn't have this podcast, it would literally be in my closet probably, but now it's back behind me. You know what I mean? Like it's one of those things.
I don't even have an ego wall.
Yeah.
I have two pictures hanging in my house. My belts are in my safe. They're not displayed anywhere. And I have two pictures hanging in my house. One is a before and after picture of my Jorge Rivera fight. And like, that was a fight that was the first fight I had in my career where I was like, this is what it feels like to be a professional fighter, because he beat the crap out of me, man. Like I had hematomas all over my foot. My eye was swelled shut, stitches I needed. And then the other one I have is a nice panoramic of Nationwide Arena in Columbus when I fought and won in my home state one time. And it was a sold out crowd and we set a record. But other than those two photos, like there's nothing in this home that's remnant of me even being a professional. You would walk in and be like, whose house is this? I
feel like the gap is, things have changed from our era to, we took pride in that. These are the things that made us. Like, we fought demons. There was demons, I think, inside of us in that first generation or second and third generation of fighters. That, like, whatever the demons were inside, we looked for something more in terms of purpose. I feel like this generation of fighters that they're at now, it's all about the money. And don't get me wrong, we loved the money. We wanted the money back then. It just wasn't available.
Oh, yeah.
It wasn't available.
I mean, listen, I wasn't going to complain if somebody added another decimal place on my paycheck. Like, that's I mean, come on, But at the end of the day, like even at the end of my career, I lost my last fight against Kong, and I got to a point where I had told myself like I would never just fight for money. It had to be for the passion of the sport. And after I lost that fight, I knew that if I was going to make another title run, I was getting late in my 30s, and the amount of time that it would have taken me, I was like, I don't know that I have this much time left. And I had one more fight on my contract, and I'm like, I'm just going to be doing this for money. And that just didn't sit well with me, the idea of that. And so there had to be some honor and pride in what it was that I was doing. So yeah, just at that point in time, it took me a while to truly come to terms with the fact that it was time for me to retire, because from my last fight, it took me like another year and a half to actually publicly announce my retirement, although people knew by that time. But yeah, I was like, it's just a tough thing to do, man. That's your first love.
What made it so hard?
It's because, the funny thing is like it's like I win the title. I have the title. I lose the title to Anderson. I work my way back to Anderson, and it's the true Cinderella story. It's in my hometown, and I lose that title, shot the second time to him. And at that point, I'm in my mid 30s basically, and people are starting like, well, when are you going to retire? Like you start getting asked these questions, and it's like, man, like for example, when an NFL quarterback wins a Super Bowl, let's say somebody wins a Super Bowl in their late 20s and then they continue playing. Like nobody says to them 3 or 4 years later, well, you won a Super Bowl 4 years ago, but you haven't won one since. So when are you going to retire? It's like, I still got 5 years of doing what I love the most in this sport and just enjoying competition. And so I was at that crossroads where I was like, man, I still enjoy this. And the thought of doing something else was just, it didn't sit well with me at that time, And in my mind now, I watch guys fight. It's crazy the way my mind works now at this age. I'll watch young guys fight, and I'll say to myself like, man, why do people do this? Like, why? But then,
Sounds like Josh.
yeah,
No,
but
we're
then at the same
exactly
time,
alike. I swear.
but at the same time, it's almost like when I watch the younger version of myself fight, it's as if I'm watching somebody different. While simultaneously, I'll tell myself like, I could maybe do one or two more. Like, it's like
Yeah.
that whole juxtaposition in my head of mental thought is insane to me. Like, it makes me question my sanity. Truly,
I walk past the cage. I'm like, God, that just feels horrible and sounds.
He cringes.
I'm
Also,
like,
he'll a big kick or something land, and he'll look and he'll go like, "Oh,
why are you guys doing that?
well, I'll tell you, it took me probably, I don't know, I want to say a good 4 years after my career to get to the point where I wasn't, where when I showed up to a fight, like when we're doing commentary, that I didn't feel like I was actually there competing, like the same kind of nerves and whatnot. Yeah, it's like that stuff messes with you, man. And to this day, I do not like listening to my walkout song. Like, it puts me in a completely different state of mind.
really?"
I won't listen to it. Yeah, if I'm in the gym working out, like I'll go over to the radio and turn that crap off. Yeah,
It's sparking that.
I'm
It's kindling that little thing.
dude, man.
It's great.
Yeah, like the last thing I need is to be stuck in LA traffic, and then suddenly my walkout song comes on. That little guitar riff for those about to rock, man, I'll probably like falling down like Michael Douglas. Just I'll snap or something.